Jeff Paterson, Canucks reporter, and one half of the rink-wide duo with Andrew Wadden, who were busy and back at it yesterday, following an overtime loss to the New Jersey Devils. Quite a game, Jeff.
Yeah, had to knock a little rust off first post-game in 10 days or so after the All-Star break, but thoroughly entertained, and it was almost the perfect game across the board, no matter how you look at this Vancouver Hockey Club, because they played hard, they didn't quit, you got some unexpected scores, you got top-end scoring, and ultimately they lost. Unfortunately, it required overtime, so they take a single point out of that game. I think there's many that hope that they don't pick up many points the rest of the way, but just on an entertainment value scale, like Canucks and Jersey, I mean, Jersey's been entertaining for much of the year, but I wasn't sure if the Canucks were going to be able to combat the Devils' speed. I thought they handled it reasonably well, and right down to the wire, obviously. So I think there were some encouraging signs for Rick Tocchet and his new coaching staff as they continue to evaluate. And so much of this is putting players in different situations. And Anthony Beauvillier's first game and Vasily Podkolzin back in the National Hockey League. And I thought there was promise from both of those guys. And as I said, some unexpected scorers or guys that just haven't done much in the way of scoring all season long, stepping up and into the fold for the Vancouver Canucks. So lots of talking points. And that's good for guys in our business.
Are the goal scorers a result of just everybody trying their best in front of the new coach? Is that the reason for all the depth here in the Tocchet era?
I'm not sure that I can explain why Curtis Lazar scored, because he hadn't scored since the third game of the season, although he thought he had scored in Seattle right before the break, and his shot went in off Connor Garland, so he got an assist, but he didn't get the goal then. But set up by Riley Stillman. I don't know what Bodog would have given you for the odds on that, a Lazar goal from Stillman, but those two guys combined. Beauvillier didn't score, but a couple of shots. Had that chance in overtime that produced the Hughes on Hughes chase down. That was some entertainment there. Look, Phil DiGiuseppe, and he talked about it. I saw the quotes to Ian McIntyre after the game. Like, this guy wants to be in the NHL, and we thought he had made the team 2 years ago out of camp. Didn't happen for him. 2 full years between goals at this level, so he put him in a position where he has the puck coming in off the right wing, a left-handed shot. Looked like he still has it. I don't think of him as moving forward here. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're going to lean on for a ton of offense, but just a reminder that these guys are still the best in the world. Even if they're toiling in the American Hockey League, they get an opportunity. Some of these guys can play. The skill is there. And so just a good news story all around, I thought, for DiGiuseppe. And the good news story for Luke Schenn just continues, a goal and an assist. He's up to 18 points on the season with no power play time. And, nights like that, the outlet pass to Kuzmenko to start the scoring. Like, you damn well know the rest of the league is paying attention to what's going on. And so if you're and we go back and we say, like, almost a perfect night, you get Luke Schenn stepping up and doing some things like that. Like, that's good news for the hockey club and for his trade value here as we work our way to March 3rd.
Unquestionably, a 3-goal comeback, which is good for Tocchet's process. You had a wonderful Hughes on Hughes nugget there in the overtime, and a highly entertaining game. I thought, let's drill a little deeper on Podkolzin. Break down what you saw from Vasily in his return to the NHL.
I thought he looked good. I thought he looked confident, and I wanted to see that. He had the partial breakaway where he got in behind Brandon Smith. The start of the second period was wild. Jesper Bratt, 20 seconds in, clear-cut breakaway. Colin Delia saves that. EP40 then the other way and hits the post. And then moments later, Podkolzin got a step on Smith and created a nice scoring chance and followed that up his next shift. Like, that was the important thing for me. Like, that he didn't seem to be content with, okay, I had a scoring chance, I'm back in the NHL. His very next shift, takes the puck out of the right wing corner, drives to the net, sharp angle, but was able to create another opportunity there. And when you look at the night for Vasily Podkolzin, 15 and a half minutes. This is a guy that, before he got sent down, like single digits in ice time. So for him to play 15 and a half minutes, 3 shots on goal, 4 hits, he looked assertive. I thought he looked like he belonged in the NHL again. Obviously, he needs to find some scoring because it's now 17 games this year, but you go back the last 6 last year, 23 games at the NHL level without a goal, where he made goal scoring look pretty easy as a rookie. So it'll come, especially if he continues to get opportunities. I guess the thing for me, guys, is I looked this morning, and I was just curious about third period ice time because he replaced Dakota Joshua at one point in the third on a line with JT Miller and Connor Garland. Well, as it turns out, only JT Miller played more at even strength among the Canuck forwards in the third period, and the Canucks were down a goal and then tied and Podkolzin was second among Canuck forwards in even strength ice time. So Rick Tocchet called him a moose in the morning, said he needed him to be a moose around the net, and then he called him a bull after the game. And this, of course, was the same coach that talked about eating elephants in his introductory press conference. So we're just getting like the,
Tocchet isn't shooting at no squirrels, Jeff. He's got bigger game.
Big game hunting here. But so I just think, all things considered, Vasily Podkolzin, it was I think a pretty effective night for him, an assertive night for him. The one area that I want to see him contribute is the penalty kill, and he didn't get that chance where a lot of other guys did, including Sheldon Dries, who we haven't seen kill penalties. The regulars were out there, and obviously they couldn't kill off the one in overtime, and I wasn't expecting to see Podkolzin there. But that's an area that I do hope, as Rick Tocchet continues this evaluation and is giving guys opportunities, I do hope that they can incorporate Vasily Podkolzin into their penalty killing ranks.
I know he led the team in Corsi, but what did you make of the new guy, Anthony Beauvillier?
Yeah, I thought he was all right. 17 minutes and 58 seconds, so a fairly healthy dose of ice time. Plum assignment on the right wing, even though he's a left shot with Paterson and Kuzmenko. He's out there on that opening goal, and then moments later, he had the sort of 2-on-1 with Paterson, and he put a little air under his pass, and I guess we just expect that EP40 is going to knock those things out of midair and into the back of the net. This one sailed wide and into the corner, so it didn't result in even really a scoring opportunity. Just sometimes a simple play, though. I think he could have just slipped it along the ice. His most memorable moment, I think, was overtime, though, where he came in on his off wing. And I don't know if that was an indication of a guy who is fighting it, because the point was made at the time of the trade. He'd gone 8 games without a goal, 1 in his last 17 with the Islanders. And at this level, these guys are so skilled that you don't want to knock them for trying to pick a corner. And yet he missed the net entirely, and that's where the puck rattled around the boards, and Jack Hughes was off to the races the other way. And the way Jack Hughes is going, it's amazing that he didn't end the game there. But, Beauvillier, he's going to have to find a way to produce. Like, especially if you're playing with Paterson and Kuzmenko, it's a great opportunity, a great starting point for him. Probably a day off now just to collect his breath and have a game under his belt, and then go back into Madison Square where he's familiar on Wednesday, and of course knowing all along that Thursday's the big night as he goes back to face his former team. So I would think that he did enough on that top line with those other two that he probably comes back. He looked like he had a pretty good jump in his step, and the interviews I've seen, he sounds pretty excited about the trade and the relocation, and I think that stands to reason. His name has been out there as trade fodder for a while, and if you pick up word that your team's trying to move you, that can mess with your head. But ultimately, it's been a pretty disappointing season offensively for him. So he now has 32 games remaining here with the Vancouver Canucks the rest of this way to try to just recapture a little bit more of that scoring form, because he's sitting on 9 goals and 20 points. I don't even think that qualifies as modest scoring. The Canucks are going to need more from him along the way here. So I think first night's, again, the effort was there. The pace of the game looked all right, but just need him to calibrate his offensive instincts a little bit more.
First night that Andrei Kuzmenko has been a part of this lineup without, the leading scorer in the lineup in Bo Horvat. And I almost felt like Kuzmenko took it upon himself to say, maybe that's me now. Maybe I'm the goal scorer on this team. To me, he was the most dynamic I can remember all season long. He's been a finisher for this team, but I don't know that I've seen him take guys on one-on-one like he did last night on multiple occasions. I mean, that's a player certainly worth $5.5 million.
And is that the Canucks' goal of the season?
Yeah,
stunner.
And that's Dougie Hamilton, who's having a heck of a season, and just made him invisible for a second there, and then finished with the shot that, we talked about going back to training camp, and we haven't seen him score with a ton of shots. He's scored from in tight so often, but talk about confidence. I don't know what he did in his All-Star break, but looked rested and refreshed. And again, I love the fact that Luke Schenn hit him in flight, and from there, Kuzmenko took over, and it was the Kuzmenko show without a doubt. And then on the power play, and the Canucks only had the one power play in the second period, but that was the one I remember, Blake, where he made something out of nothing and attacked the net, and You're
Fake
right.
shot, made the little curl and drag. It was beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. So, no, again, lots to like there. The Canucks only had one power play, so, it didn't feel like a game necessarily where the power play differential should have been 4-1. I know that the Canucks compounded the problems. Riley Stillman taking the cross-check that put them down 2 men in the third period there. But I thought there wasn't a penalty called in the first half of the hockey game, and so that's where Kuzmenko obviously has had some success and will continue to have some success. That's what I wanted to see without Horvat. What does this power play look like? But we only got the one look at it. Beauvillier just sliding in and taking Horvat's spot in the bumper there. So we'll have to wait to glean a little bit more about what the power play is going to look like. But that's a good start for Kuzmenko. And again, this is a guy who has done the bulk of his scoring on home ice, and that's not a knock on him. I think over the course of the year, most guys in the NHL probably do score more at home than on the road. But his splits coming out of the All-Star break were 14 at home and just 7 on the road. So for him to start this road trip, and now that they're going to lean on him because with Horvat gone, you're right, others are going to have to step up and pick up the scoring. So that's a nice start for him as he adjusts to a new winger on the other side, and he and EP40 certainly have some chemistry going, and so the only thing about that line was they were on the ice for the first 3 Devils goals, so they opened the scoring themselves, but and this was one of the storylines to me, and we touched on it on Rink Wide. It's a 1-1 tie starting into the second period, in fact, to the middle stages of the second period, and the 2-1 goal is the direct result of a Devils face-off win against Elias Pettersson. And, whatever, Devils get up 2-1, that's fine. Canucks are still in the game, it's a one-shot game, but we've seen this so often, and Rick Tocchet, it may have sort of, sent him for a loop, but I think most Canuck fans that have watched this team, you're almost conditioned to seeing these breakdowns, and it just happens so suddenly, and 28 seconds later and then 22 seconds beyond that, you've gone from a 1-1 tie and you're in a 4-1 deficit. But the Paterson line, I think that was part of the surprise, was the 2-1 goal comes off a face-off, and then they compound the problems on the 3-1 goal. Paterson had a chance just inside the line, couldn't clear the puck, and the Devils take over. They apply the pressure, and then Tyler Myers, just the dreadful giveaway. And Palat made no mistake. And then moments after that one, it's Jack Hughes, and it's 4-1. And that's where we said, good on the Canucks. They didn't go quietly, they didn't quit. But I just tracked back to Elias Pettersson on the defensive side of things, because I saw some pushback on social media about why was Miller the lone penalty killing forward on a 4-on-3 power play in overtime. And, this is what we're going to learn about Rick Tocchet here. And I think Rick Tocchet's going to learn as he goes about personnel and situations. Obviously, that would have been about Horvat, right? A defensive zone faceoff on the penalty kill to start in overtime. Well, Horvat doesn't play here anymore. JT Miller led the Canucks in faceoff wins last night with 11. Elias Pettersson went 6-12 in the faceoff circle. And it's been an area of concern throughout his career. And now that Horvat's gone, all these guys are going to have to step up. The problem is that Horvat won so many of his faceoffs against the other team's best players. And so just because a guy like Elias Pettersson is going to get more reps in the faceoff circle, I don't know that it necessarily means that his percentage is going to go up, because you're taking on guys that are, experts in this area of the game as well. So I think it was a hunch by Rick Tocchet. They probably would have liked Pettersson as the defensive forward, but if Miller wins the faceoff and they clear, I think there was a minute and 12, minute and 19 was what was left on the clock in overtime. So Rick Tocchet's new. He's still trying to figure out his personnel, but just an area to monitor as we go forward here is faceoffs. And not all faceoffs are equal, and a lot of faceoffs ultimately don't really matter, but a power play faceoff in overtime certainly does. Devils won the draw, applied the pressure, and ultimately stuck the dagger in.
A changing of the guard night for the Canucks with Elias swearing an A. Do you know how is it going to be game to game, him and Hughes rotating? And then a comment or two on Horvat's night on the island, where he admitted to be very nervous to play for his new team.
Yeah, I don't know yet, because if it's truly a rotation, that would suggest that there will be nights that JT Miller or OEL have the A taken off their jersey. So I don't know if they're going to be permanent A's and Hughes and Pettersson are going to switch off. So we'll have to wait till the next game, or maybe the Thursday. Last night it was Pettersson. Maybe Pettersson doesn't wear one and Hughes does at Madison Square. But at some point here, or when they come off the road, we'll get a little bit better clarification, I suppose. I did think it was fascinating, though, if you guys saw the graphic artwork that the Canucks put out announcing this sort of 4-man quad A thing, if you will. like Elias Pettersson is front and center. There is no question in the graphic that he's the big man, and then from there you've got Hughes and Miller and OEL. So I just kind of felt like graphic that they can file away, and sometime early next year just make a slight switch and put a C on Paterson and trot out the same graphic. Although I guess depends if those guys are all still here and on the roster. As for Horvat, I was trying to chart his game as the Canucks game went along. It started half an hour before the Canucks and the Devils. Get used to it, Bo. Another 2-1 hockey game. The Islanders' last 4 games have all been 2-1 or 2-0. That's who they are. And so, here's Bo Horvat, who I think had designs on a 50-goal season. Honestly, I think he'll get to 40 at some point, but he only has 29 games remaining if he plays them all. Goal scoring is going to be a challenge for the Islanders. It is. This is who they are, and they're in a playoff chase. They need all these wins. I think their best way to get success is to lock it down. So I don't know how much offense ultimately he's going to be able to produce, but he looked like he played a healthy dose in terms of minutes. He had 4 shots on goal, led the Islanders 1 more faceoffs than he lost. Not a surprise there. So I'm sure he's glad to get that one out of the way, but no rest for Bo Horvat. I mean, the All-Star weekend, gets a practice in, plays in Philly. They're at home to Seattle tonight. The Islanders are. So, back-to-back for Bo, head probably still spinning, and we'll see what he can do against a familiar opponent in the Seattle Kraken. And then he gets a day off, and then, now it's his former team. So quite a week for Bo Horvat from going, through the trade to the All-Star weekend, and then coming out with 3 and 4, including back-to-backs right off the hop.
I think you snuffed it out with regards to Elias on the graphics. Look, new coach, new management group, but I think what they did with Horvat, where they basically let him grow into the sea, I think we're seeing here with Elias Pettersson. Now we'll see if Elias adopts that sort of captain mindset that Bo very much adopted in that year before he was named captain.
Yeah.
There were times where we even thought, oh boy, like this almost sounds like a campaign, like he's in a New Hampshire diner.
I do wonder if they want to wait till they're better before they give him the captaincy.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, like next year is going to be a pretty tough year. Do they make him go out after every loss next year and answer those questions?
They're not. I'm not sure they would concede that next year is going to be a pretty tough year.
You're right.
Secondly, I've had so many people say, oh, you can only give him the C when he signs the extension. Otherwise, it could be one and done. I've always looked at it the other way. Entice him to resign by empowering him and giving him the C and telling him it's your team. But, Jeff, I've also been told, oh, he's too quiet, he's too shy, he doesn't want to talk to the media, which is just utter nonsense, particularly with, there's another shy.
And the language is getting better by the year, too. He's going to feel more and more confident.
He looked pretty relaxed on that beach lounge talking to Friedman and Merrick at the All-Star weekend. The other thing, too, guys, is this talk about the market. And, again, if people aren't really following along in the media, I think we're pretty good examples of what's gone on in the last couple of years. By my count, there's exactly 1 traveling media member on this road trip through the New York area, which is just unheard of. Obviously, you got the broadcasters, the TV guys, but Ian McIntyre from Sportsnet, who does some TV work. But, so don't give me this. This is just every game answering these tough questions. There's nobody in the locker room.
Nobody there.
Unfortunately, and that's not great for the fan base or the product, ultimately, or for the hockey club. But that's a different situation. But just in terms of guys having to step up and answer questions, there's 1 questioner on this road trip right now. So, I think with 32 games remaining, and Rick Tocchet really sort of in full information overload, it just makes sense to slow the roll a little bit down the stretch here, take in as much as he can, get a read on the locker room dynamic and, who's here after the March 3rd trade deadline, all that kind of stuff. And then I think you put your heads together in the offseason and come up with a plan. But I would expect, I don't think it's too much too soon because Elias Pettersson turns 25 in November, the start of the season next year. He'll be 24 months or 24 years and 11 months. He's not young anymore. This is him entering the prime of his career. He is the best player they've got. And I know you're asking about dekes, and we haven't seen his. There have been some nights where we've seen his dekes, but I think it's a fascinating poll question because Kuzmenko may have forged ahead there. But what about the wrecking ball that Elias Pettersson has become? And not just last night with the hit on Siegenthaler in the 3rd, but we've seen this a little bit from him. And he's such a headsy player. He reads the play, and I think he recognizes that he's not the biggest guy in the world, but, he maybe was good at science in high school. He understands force and, the use of his body weight. he has knocked some guys on their keisters a couple of times this year. And I think it's a welcome addition as he rounds out his game. And, that has to give the guys on the bench a boost. And if you're looking for leadership, it can come in different fashions. But to see Elias Pettersson running over and running through guys, like, hey, I'm all for it.
So you're Kuzmenko on the dekes or you're Pettersson on the Bodog?
I mean, last night it was Kuzmenko. I still probably side. I mean, Pettersson's had his 2 5-point nights. He was electric the night against Seattle just before Christmas. We saw the dekes then, certainly. So I'm not sure that Kuzmenko has taken the crown from him, but a few more goals like last night, he's certainly entered the conversation.
A worthy challenger.
Yes.
On the do your dekes, bro, side of things. Marvelous stuff. I've joked your former podcast mate is looking down on me, and maybe literally and figuratively, because I voted for Kuzmenko.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Marvelous stuff. We'll catch up Thursday, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks.